and I apologize for the confusion on the time. We had a last-minute request to have a closed session agenda, and it turned out that the document that we were expecting did not come in. But because we had set the meeting at 6:30, I thought it should stay at 6:30, but I apologize for all that confusion. I'm going to take a roll call. Director Debbie? Here. Director Madavi? Here. Director Sheriff Swat? Here. Vice President Desai? Here. All right. Are there any comments not on the agenda?
Oh, I have one comment. Since the mics are so bad, everybody wanted to sit further forward, you'll be able to hear directly. Just a thought.
Okay, do I not need a microphone? Paul Jordan, Kensington resident. Doesn't work? Okay, I'll just try to speak up and hope you can hear me and hope Dave can hear me. As far as I can tell, there's been no proper notice of this meeting. And as a consequence, I think the assembly of this group of people, the directors of the district here, is unlawful and a violation of the Brown Act. I think it's a mistake to proceed. Do as you wish, of course. But I don't believe any adequate notice has been given to this meeting. Many people are expected at 7, according to one of the many agendas that we received. So I want to preserve that for the record. I think that one result is any action taken could be invalid.
Brown Act requires each special meeting in its entirety. The Brown Act requires 24-hour notice agenda be posted. And that agenda state the date and time and place of the special meeting. So the original notice posted last week said 7 o'clock, but with more than 24 hours before this meeting, that time has changed. Now, it's within the board's discretion to decide to continue the meeting until 7 if they believe that would accommodate more of the residents. They're not required to do so because the Brown Act agenda that was posted 24 hours in advance did say 6:30.
I'm not here to debate that. I just want to put it on the record so I preserve my objection.
I would say we wait till 7 because usually we do have a closed and open session times individually exactly for this reason, and that everyone's playing fast and loose here.
It's not intentional, I assure you. There was
Something
something
else not to characterize it that way. If there was a problem, we're discussing it rationally. The minute you start talking about terms like fast and loose, you start to create an atmosphere that is not conducive to constructive discussion. I agree with your point, but I would like to remove the characterization.
Well, we had like 3 emails in fast succession, and then David Bergen's was posting one next door. That was pretty fast.
It was my
I
intention.
do think, unfortunately, so if that's the perception in the
Okay, thank you very much. This is not the time for that comment right now.
Yeah.
I'd like Ann to continue discussion, and Cyrus, if you wish to make a motion, or what the proper procedure would be, let's move on in the proper way.
motion, second and vote.
If you wish to continue the meeting until 7 o'clock to accommodate people who may be confused by the time changes.
I second.
No, you can make a motion.
Oh,
You
okay.
can't second your own motion, but I'll second it. That's the 3-minute comment period is over. All right, Director Madavi?
Aye.
Director Sherswat?
Aye.
Director Desai?
Aye.
Okay, Director Deppie? Yes, yes.
I just want to make sure that there is someone in the audience that's expecting something to happen now. When it isn't pointed out, I'm not there, so I can't tell.
Is there anyone here who will be disappointed if we continue the meeting at 7 o'clock because of the confusion with the notice? No one's raised their hand, Chris?
Okay, I say aye.
All right, so the motion passes 5-0. Right, and again, I apologize for the confusion. Chris, do you want me to call you at 7?
Very good.
Great. Does work. Okay, it's 7 o'clock, and I'm going to resume our meeting for October 15th. All directors are present, and we took roll call earlier. I will now take public comments on items not on the agenda tonight.
I'm Joanna Furman. Are you able to hear me? Yeah? No? Louder? I'm Johanna Furman, and first I'd like to thank you, Eileen and... Yeah? Working? So first, thank you, Eileen and the board, for delaying the meeting. I think that we have as many people who have come in for the meeting at 7, I think is a show of the wisdom of that. This is really about the question of moving forward on the RFP. And I don't want this to become a contentious issue now. We've gone back and forth on this. I'm sorry, there seems to be some feedback on the mic. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's on the agenda. So,
That's an agenda, the RFP.
well, but the issue of the vote is not. And I think what you need to hear, and I'm happy to wait if you prefer. I mean, either way. This is really reporting to you on some activity that has taken place in the community. Chris, this is about activity that's been taking place in the community between over the last couple of months, and that we felt it was important for the board to hear this. This is really outside of the ordinance. I think there have been a group of us, and we've been concerned, on the one hand, that the RFP had gone out without mention of the ordinance. And so what we did was to send out, and by the way, if Meryl Rafferty were able to be here tonight, she would be reporting on this, because it was Meryl who really did the mailing and collected the cards. And the important thing is to recognize that there have been literally hundreds. I wonder, I think it's probably, the mic is too close, is that it? Yeah. There have been hundreds of people in the community who responded to that mailing, and who responded by saying that they support there being a vote. So as you are moving forward on your deliberations, we felt that it was very important for you to understand the size of that group in Kensington. That's really it. Thank you.
What's the number? Hundreds is a round number.
Oh, many more than hundreds, right?
How many?
And I'm happy to follow up with
So
you
how
on
about a
that,
number?
right? I'm happy to follow
How
up.
about a number?
As I said, if Meryl were here tonight, she would have done all of the counting. But it is well over 300 or 400. It is hundreds of households, hundreds of individuals. I don't have the exact number for you. But the response to that mailing was really fairly, it was worthy of note. The numbers of people who wrote back, and by the way, wrote on the cards their insistence that there be a vote going back to the ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other public comments before we begin the meeting? Seeing none, I'm going to, we have the consent calendar. Are there any comments on the consent calendar?
I'm pulling minutes 5B, October 10th. Well, I guess both to reference both, but my question is exactly what is making the standard now for what becomes a public comment that's recorded and a public comment that isn't? Because it seems that the public comments seem to vary, like who is being recorded and who is not, and there doesn't be a consistent pattern for how the minutes are being taken. And that's it.
There was one public comment at the closed session, and I did record that. But the only thing that needs to be recorded in the minutes are the action items.
But then, so in the minutes before that, the September minutes, there are no public comments.
We can delete the sentence as to who spoke at the public meeting. So I'll make the motion that we adopt the consent calendar with the amendment that we will strike the sentence of the one public comment for the October 10th meeting. And I will add AM and PM as appropriate, but I think it's going to only be PM. Yes, I can do that. Yeah. All right. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay. Director Duffy? Director Madadi?
No, I think these minutes are horrendous, as usual.
Director Sherswat?
Yes. Aye.
Vice President Desai?
Aye.
Okay. We will now go to the general manager comments.
Thank you. Thank you, President Philly. I have 3 items to report to the board this month. The first one is the administrative recruitments in the district office. We completed the recruitments and interviewed the finalists. We have offered
Can't hear back here.
job offers.
Tony, can you speak louder?
We have offered. Let me start over again. I have 3 items to report on. You have to speak right into the microphone. The first one is the administrative recruitments. We have extended offers to 2 of the 3 part-time positions. And those 2 individuals are currently going through a background process. And the offers are contingent on their completion of these background. The second one is the Community Center Progress Report. Basically, the Community Center is still right on target. There aren't any major glitches. The architect supplied us summary of some of the specific work that's currently being done, and I've included it in the general manager report. And then finally, at this time of year, Bayview submits their proposal for rate increases, subject to review and verification. And that has been completed, and the new rates are in the attached letter that I've attached to the general manager's report. We'll probably post that separately on the website so the public is aware of these changes. And that concludes my report, Madam President.
I have some questions. First, for the okay, sort of works. So first, for the administrative recruitment, I was wondering, so I went back and looked at the Cough Associates, their job descriptions that they've been posted and stuff,
And A, it is good that there is a background check being done, but why was that not put in the original recruitment forms?
That's part of the normal process of conclusion.
It was not in the report, and I actually looked at how this district has conducted it. Both the district secretary position and the district administrator positions explicitly said they would undergo a detailed public safety background investigation as part of their hiring.
Right.
So why was that not put originally in the ads?
It doesn't have to be posted on the announcement, but we are going through that process currently.
But is there a reason why it was not posted? That seems like something usually you tell your applicants.
It's usually a recruitment brochure we're talking about the position trying to attract quality candidates. They aren't really concerned with the background investigation until they're offered the position.
Well, but we are as a district. That's the difference. Second question, could you please clarify to the board your interview process? Like who was doing the interviews? Was it just you? Anyone else?
And we had outside panelists and internal people.
Who were they?
I prefer not to disclose who they were.
Well, because I heard one of them was Assistant City Manager of El Cerrito. So did you also extend offers to Albany and others to join the process?
You don't have to extend offers to others to participate in interviews. What you need are professional peers.
But we are in the process of doing RFPs with El Cerrito. So doesn't that seem sort of like it's maybe not the best choice?
Not at all. It was an excellent choice. It was an excellent individual.
Okay, and then going to the community center. So I'm finding curious, like in this summary, will you be telling us how many change orders come in? Because when we go down the list to the next agenda item, like when we get to the community center, you're saying there's already one change order coming in. So how can you say it's going off without a glitch?
Change order was not a major, I would call it a glitch. It was an unexpected issue that came up and was addressed. I can talk about it.
But yeah, it's been over $10,000. And, you know.
Well, every construction project, if you've ever been involved with any kind of construction project, there will be change orders. It's just
And remember,
standards. As the fact is that the change that occurred could not have been anticipated either by the board without some extensive testing or the architects or contractors. So, and it's all within our contingency.
I'm just saying, that would be something that we should be aware of also in the summary, not something that is all the way buried down in like forms.
How is it?
It's all the way at the bottom in the it's all the way at the bottom in the last agenda item.
Because we're handling it as an agenda item tonight.
But yes, I'm saying if we're having a summary of the progress report, those things should be, as they go on, the board should be aware of them.
I have a question about which two of the positions you've extended offers for.
We've extended offers for the Director of Business and Finance and the Clerk of the Board.
All right, are there any interim chief of police comments? No, okay. I have two comments, they're written, they are part of the agenda packet. One is the traffic meeting that we held with the county, and I hope to have another traffic meeting for the public when the community center comes back on. Anyone who's ever met Monish Sen will know that he is strictly adhering to the manual on uniform traffic control devices for streets and highways, which was no doubt written before our residential streets became the alternates to freeways. And I think we need to have another meeting where he can understand some of the concerns that residents have. And I very much appreciate that Dave Spath, as head of KPOA, and Linda Lipscomb, as head of KIC, were able to attend and give some input on some from in the early meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the early meeting, she was there, and we walked around Kensington to identify some of the spots and tried with a couple of photographs to impress upon Monish. But one of the things that we all need to understand is that the three intersections, which are probably the most problematic, this one right here at Rington, the one at Sunset, and the one at Amherst and Coventry and the Arlington, would be very expensive to do properly. And they're not going to do anything unless they can do it properly, which makes total sense because they don't want to in any way condone an improper structure by doing it halfway or doing some minor modification, but not really addressing it. And the problem in really addressing those three intersections is it would take a chunk of money. So the idea would be to form some consensus within the community to put those three intersections into a priority and then start knocking on Supervisor Joya's door to see if he can't get the money to start fixing some of these problematic intersections. Meanwhile, I think the community can work on Monish and with Supervisor Joya's help, possibly, to address some of these other issues on our residential streets where people are whizzing by because 80 is crowded or closed. All right, and with that, we are...
Hold on, excuse me. Did the issue of traffic coming off, did the issue of traffic coming off of the Arlington and up through Ardmore and back down come up at all in your discussions?
No.
I have heard from residents that that is an issue that, and I've seen it myself happening. So just to add that to the list of concerns.
Wait, explain it again.
They realize that the traffic is backing up on the Arlington.
Yes.
And so through the magic of GPS and Waze, or
Yes.
just, they turn left up to on Oberlin and then right onto Amherst and go kind of speeding down Amherst.
Oh,
So
I see.
I don't have a count,
I see.
but I've heard it from residents. I have seen it happening.
I see.
So it makes that intersection, you know, where Amherst comes back out even more.
Okay, more problematic. Okay, yeah. I think Monish needs to hear some of these complaints. The other is we are making progress with Bayview to add food composting and also have what I think would be a better way for hazardous waste management, which is to have, in essence, a concierge service where you can make an appointment maybe once a month and have hazardous waste picked up at your house, as opposed to needing to schlep all the way out to outer Richmond and beyond. So we're working on that. And also, we're doing this because there's a new state law that will mandate composting and mandate the use of carts. And so we're trying to work all of that in. The state keeps on changing the regulations, and they just issued new draft regulations on October 2nd, and we're working with those right now. So, 3 minutes, Gail. We're keeping track. 360 seconds.
Hi, Gail Feldman. So I just wanted to speak to the Bayview contract. So one of the things you did mention is that in order to get the new package that you're negotiating with them, you have to extend the contract for 10 years. At least that's what they're asking for right now. There's a couple of things. One, I think the community was somewhat promised 7 years ago, or whenever the last contract was agreed to, that there would be an RFP at some point. Clearly, that's not going to happen now. In the meantime, the district collects significant amount of franchise fees from ratepayers in the community. And if you're not doing an RFP and you're not really doing annual financial reviews of the company's rates, I don't really understand why that amount of money is being collected. And so I would like to see a couple of things as you're going through this process of renegotiating with Bayview, which is somehow, in order to keep some rate down, because you're going to have to increase the rate already 7%, for the new services as well as whatever else they're going to ask for, to somehow like roll in some of these franchises, either reduce your franchise fee or roll it back to the community so that we're getting a service, some, offsetting the Bayview costs, because otherwise these, rates just keep going up and up, and the costs, continue to rise for being a homeowner in Kensington. And I know that, the police service district's going to come back at some point for some kind of enhancement on your taxes. It's just getting to be too much. And while I realize a lot of people wanted this new enhanced service fine, you know, that's how it works, but, you know, I think it's really unfair that you're collecting so much money out of ratepayers' pockets and then keeping it with no benefit back to us as to why we have these high rates or anything about the Bayview contract. So I would appreciate, you know, maybe you're going to use it to offset the hazardous waste pickup, I don't know, but, you know, I would like that to be included in your next report on how we're going to roll back some benefit to the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is, yes, yes.
Is it necessary that we have cards?
Under the state law, yes.
But is there an exception for small communities? But I guess my suggestion to make it clear, I have cards, I think it's going to be problematic for Kensington, for a lot of residents, to have to construct them up and down maybe steep driveways. They don't have the space to keep them. I'm worried that what you're going to have is Kensington essentially littered with carts on every street in front of every house because they don't have a place to put them. So I'm totally against the carts. I just don't know if there's any way for us to get out.
Well, there is, under the draft regulations, it looks like we could apply for a waiver. Whether we get a waiver or not is, of course, uncertain. But the other thing to keep in mind is that the use of the carts is something that the waste haulers want because it lowers workers' comp costs, because otherwise you have the people picking up the garbage, schlepping very heavy containers. The carts would allow them with a lift on the back to lift the cart up and not engage in that manual labor. And what I just asked people in Kensington to keep in mind is what happened to Piedmont. Piedmont's rates went double, and they went out with an RFP. They only got a response from their current provider, and the other waste company said Piedmont streets are narrow and hilly. Like, duh, have you ever been to Piedmont? Have you ever been to Kensington? And the other thing is the manual labor involved, and at Piedmont it's the same system, which is called the semi-automatic system, as opposed to an automatic system that's used in Berkeley and Albany and El Cerrito and other communities. So it's just something to keep in mind, and obviously we're not making any decisions on this tonight, but it's something to keep in mind. All right. And I know that there's a number of people that oppose the cards, but as of right now, it's required under state law unless we can qualify for the waiver, or we were granted the waiver. All right, if there's no other,
Our issue, is there a reason why we can't have backyard service, but have the carts in the backyard, and Bayview comes up and gets the carts for those people for whom it's a real problem? To get it up and down from the street and not have it parked in the street.
they have backyard service now for only garbage, not for recycling or green. I don't know what they would do.
Well, ask them about that, because certainly there's people who are going to need that.
Yep.
And having those carts parked on the street, even in, we'll say, the lower places where they have more street room, is such a pain in the neck. It takes up a lot of the parking places.
All right. If there's no other comments, we will move on to the request for extension to respond to the request for proposal for police service. Most freedom.
I just wanted to take a moment. So we had, the first thing, there was that earthquake last night. Everyone felt, good reminder to stock up and, be prepared. The fire district has a lot of useful information on that. Also, the same goes for the public safety power shutoffs. And I just want to take a moment to thank our police for having actually been here, patrolling during the power outage. We actually heard at the closed session, the Barrow had said that there had been some crime on the edge of town, but nothing actually pushing inwards. And so just, wanted to raise a thank you and also to remind everyone to be prepared. We live in interesting times.
Thank you. Okay. General Manager Constantouris, would you like to address the request for the extension to respond to the request for proposal from El Cerrito?
Yes, President Tully, the district authorized sending a request. The district authorized sending a request for proposal to the cities of Albany, Berkeley, El Cerrito, and the Contra Costa Sheriff's Department. And that RFP sought proposals from those agencies for either a contract department or a hybrid approach, contracting some of the services. When I wrote this report, the city of Berkeley and the county sheriff's department had responded and decided not to submit a proposal. Since that time, the city of Albany has also responded, and they have also decided not to submit a proposal. Today, I received a proposal from a private company that seeks to contract for police services. I'm not familiar with them and haven't read the proposal, but that's the latest information I have about the contract. The city of El Cerrito has sent a letter indicating that they're developing a potential proposal and they've asked for a 45-day extension. The letter is included in the packet from the El Cerrito police chief. And my recommendation is to approve the 45-day extension.
General Manager, sorry, I'm going to chat it all of you. General Manager Concentraris, my question is, considering the 45-day extension, as the board is in negotiation with the KPP for an MOU, would it make more sense to authorize a 60-day extension for proposals? Because should an MOU be processed during that time, that would allow responding districts to factor in new information.
Why are we bending over backwards for El Cerrito on this? Like, if they start saying to us, oh, we're going to take 45 minutes longer on all your calls for service, are we also going to say, sure, that's awesome?
No.
Well, I mean, you're essentially...
Respond to Director Saraswat's question.
In response to your question, I think it's the prerogative of the board to decide if to grant an extension and the length of the extension. But you do raise a good point about the current negotiation. The 15 days, additional 15 days shouldn't have any major negative impact on El Cerrito or the district.
Okay. It was just my understanding that given the fact that we have no second meeting in October and that we only have one meeting either in November and December due to holidays, that perhaps extending this proposal, giving an additional 15 days would be sensible.
I mean, I'm going to just ask this, like, are we essentially admitting we're going to do whatever El Cerrito wants?
No, we are not. We are acting as a professional organization who has been presented with a professional request. We can deny it or we can agree to it. In my mind, because we are in negotiations with the KPP, which is a new set of information and a new set of circumstances, it's actually prudent on any organization, including our own, to let, if should that information be settled, that is new for all parties, then they respond appropriately.
But they're also a professional organization. We set them a reasonable deadline, and get this, out of all these contracting partners, El Cerrito worked with ad hoc committee. They had a framework from the ad hoc committee. El Cerrito's chief also came to one of the, I believe it was one of our meetings, and had sent an email. I've been considering what it's like to, run this department. And he also came and looked at the police department. So he's clearly had a lot of time and a lot of framework to work from compared to the other departments, yet he's still the one asking for more time.
Excuse me, can I ask another question? Rachel, what is the information or what do you think?
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you. Okay, how's this? I wonder what you think the impact is, because clearly it would change the salaries of KPD officers, and potentially some other items, but how do you think that would affect, it would affect perhaps our understanding of our own situation, how do you think it would affect their proposal?
Well, I don't want to go into too much detail, given that, but should certain parameters, it would just be information that if were I applying, I would like to know all the various details of not only salary, but all the other factors that make up providing for employees.
I mean, you're not answering my question. They're also a professional organization. They've had all this pre-time to prepare. They've even submitted draft proposals in 2016, and yet out of all of these contracting partners, they're the one who's saying we need more time.
Well, I'm happy to respond to your question. The ad hoc committee was formed in 2015. You say that they submitted a draft proposal in 2016. In 2020, that would be 4 years on. Essentially, 4 years worth of information and changes in policing, changes in membership in the board, changes in their own internal organization. I think that...
My point is they have a framework, unlike all others, you know? They were actually the only one out of the ad hoc committee to produce a very formal-looking proposal for them.
That's wonderful. I don't know who in their organization prepared that. If you...
Paul Keith, the chief.
If you do not wish to vote in favor of this extension, that is absolutely within your purview.
But I'm asking, how do you justify that?
I justify it because I think it's a reasonable request from a professional organization.
Even though...
And I don't think it upsets or disrupts our organization any more than necessary.
It does. It adds more churning to this process and like adds more uncertainty. And why is it they get like this free pass? It's like you're essentially saying
my assumption is that with an extension, any organization could in fact come in and provide an RFP within the extension time. This is not merely for El Cerrito, it's for any organization. We will have moved our date for accepting proposals.
But you only sent it out to 4 organizations, you're down to 1.
Well, no, actually, any of those organizations could, in fact, decide that they, this time, as essentially apparently a private company has done, that they would like.
We want a private company?
They're not debating the issue, I'm sorry, Director Madani.
No,
We're debating actually only this extension. So that's all we're talking about. That's the only item up for discussion.
Okay, well, you're sort of indicating to El Cerrito you're going to do whatever they want. So when you
No,
go to negotiations...
I've received, in my opinion, I've received a request from the police department, which I can either vote for or against this evening.
So, I mean, do you understand how this looks when we go to negotiations, if we go to negotiations?
Yes, I actually do understand how this looks, but I'm pretty familiar with negotiations.
Well, then you're saying we really wanted you, and now we're negotiating from a position of weakness.
No.
We did not put our foot down and hold to our own deadlines.
I don't think we're negotiating from weakness at all. Consideration of an RFP when it comes in as its own information. It will be decided on its own merits at that time, I hope, for each director and each community member. And we will do, I hope, as I would do, which is look at the best interest of the district at that time.
I mean, is dragging this process out for longer and longer in the best interest of the district?
One comment that I want to make is that the proposal that El Cerrito put forward during the ad hoc process had a beat that would be both El Cerrito and Kensington, and we specified in the RFP that we issued this year that it would be Kensington only beats, no combined beats. I just wanted to mention that.
I know, I'm saying, but if it had framework and documents and a lot of the calculation stuff already in place.
I'm going to make a motion to extend the response. Go ahead. But I can still make the motion, you can come down. I'm going to make the motion to extend the response to the RFP by 60 days, which would be in effect December 14th, which is a Friday, and that would mean that the response would be December 16th, Monday.
Oh, okay.
So at least that's how I calculated.
Your microphone is dead.
It doesn't matter.
Linda doesn't need a microphone.
One in there. I'll hold it out here. It's too uncomfortable. Do I really need to use this?
Yes, it doesn't.
I will urge you not to extend this time for response to the RFP. Why? You've been doing this, upsetting this department, keeping it in a state of churning and churning. And what's going to happen to it for 4 years now? 4 years at least. I think it has to stop, and this is your perfect time to stop. And I disagree with you about the effect with respect to negotiations on the MOU. If I were their counsel, I would be calling this an unfair labor practice because you are holding over their head as you go into negotiations. Well, we still got this RFP standing out there. You guys better fold a little. So I disagree with you that it's a clean slate for you. Matrix, your own selected individuals, analyze the main problem that our district has had. Matrix said that the uncertainty of the existence of this department, the continuous hiring of interim and temporary, the reorganization, the churning, folks, that is what is deterring you from hiring and staffing up a police department which is so devoted to us that they are working overtime for years now to cover the shifts that you refuse to cover by having a proper complement of employees. So I say they have failed to comply. One of the big things we've always heard from the people who want to contract out is they've got plenty of administration. We won't have that problem. Well, I guess the administration couldn't get to writing up an RFP. And they already have years of experience in how to do it. So I urge you, for the sake of this community, to please say, thank you very much. We're going to work on our department. We're going to implement as many of the proposals in the matrix suggestions, in the analysis that we have for them, as we can to keep our department. Thank you.
Linda, thank you for your comments. From my experience having served on the board a number of years ago, I was well aware then that El Cerrito wanted our police contract. They have wanted it for almost 40 years. And why they can't have a proposal ready by the due date is a complete mystery. If you can't get your act together in 40 years, what's the problem? Mr. Constantouros, I would like to know who this private company is. Is this a police department or is this a security service?
Well, as I indicated, I just received it tonight. I have not had a chance to review it. I do not know.
I'm sorry, you can't tell us if it's a police department or
I
a
just
security
received
department.
an envelope today.
Okay, so just so all of you know, Montclair is now really Oakland. And Montclair does not get much police service. Montclair is very much like Kensington. Kensington is to El Cerrito as Montclair is to Oakland. In order to have any kind of service, Montclair has had to hire a private security firm to patrol its neighborhoods. The drawback is a security firm cannot arrest anybody. These are not police officers. And so if this is a security firm that submitted a proposal, all they can do is pick up their cell phone, dial 911, and say, hey, police officers, come on up, we have a problem here. And God only knows how long it will be before they can get up here to help us. Okay, then I'd also like to know, when are the El Cerrito officers next up for a salary increase? Because if you're only going to take a police officer increase for
Kensington into account, you also need to take the next increase for El Cerrito into account. Thank you very much.
Does anyone here want to answer? Does anyone know? When El Cerrito's police contract?
It actually is irrelevant, that their contract coming up is rather irrelevant to this proposal this evening.
It is. It's relevant because we'll be paying their El Cerrito salaries, just like the fire district pays the El Cerrito firefighter salaries.
We have no RFP. This is no RFP. There's no decision-making nor there about concerning salaries this evening.
What this is concerned with is whether or not we are going to authorize an extension. So theoreticals about other situations in other cities is not conducive to this discussion.
Hi. I just wanted to read from the El Cerrito Police Department's letter, and it states, "The request is complex. It calls upon potential respondents to provide not only a proposal for full police services, but also an evaluation of the possibility of a la carte options. As I'm sure you understand, entering into a long-term police services contract is a weighty matter, and all stakeholders deserve to have a well-considered response." That's what we're doing. We're asking to have an extension so that they can give a complete response. Anyone who has looked at an RFP knows the tremendous amount of number crunching that goes on, the numerous pages that break down all these things, and it has to be done appropriately. We don't want this to be done quickly or slapdash. So I applaud them for asking for more time to do it properly. So it's not off the hand. It has nothing to do with negotiating or bargaining. It's about creating a product that is complete and will meet our needs for information. Thank you.
Good evening. Is it on?
Yeah.
I am backing exactly what Linda said. She said it much better than I could say it. And I support her comments. You as a board, you're acting like you're afraid to make a decision on our police department. I can't believe that any organization would take this long to make a decision. Don't give them any extra.
I'll second the motion to extend the RFP.
Could I ask a clarification, is that for the 60 days or 45 days?
60 days.
60 days.
60 days, which I count to December 14th, which means Friday, which means December 16th.
Saturday.
Oh, Saturday, sorry. Which is
Right. Director Deputies? Okay. Director Madavi?
No, and I'm going to say this very clearly. You have just indicated very much, El Cerrito, that we are now the second tier, second-class citizen when it comes to negotiations.
Director Saraswat?
Yes.
Vice President Hassan?
Yes.
The motion passes 4-1.
recall. Pardon? If you want to speak, please come up to the podium. Yes, the next is a public safety building update. Director Saraswat, could you please take this on?
Absolutely. Is this working? No.
There we go. Director Debbie and myself have been working on the temporary and long-term housing for the KPPCSD administration and KPD department. We have developed a list of sites for consideration in Kensington, approximately 10. We're not currently making that public. You'll understand why, of course, because we would not like to, we want to gather information in a quiet and respectful way and not frighten or cause anyone to develop pie in the sky wishes for property development.
Does that mean the board doesn't get to
Excuse me,
work?
I'm not speaking.
I'm asking, does
Please,
the board-
please let me finish speaking, and then I'm happy to entertain your questions. Thank you. So we have this list of sites. We want to invite anyone to share any recommendations on sites that they have. We want to let you know that we are still going to plan on having a public meeting on January 25th. That's a Saturday at the community center. Should all go well. We've extended that seems later both because of the fact that we are in construction and sites are difficult to find for large groups in Kensington, and also the fact that in the last discussion between the architect and the Kensington Fire Board, it was understood that removal and construction on the public safety building would not begin until October 2020. So earlier we were looking at a March deadline, and that now it seems that October would be the earliest we would that they would be starting. So I will now, you will be seeing many more items on next month's agenda and in coming agendas, but the one that is most prudent is the item C, so I'll save any discussion for that item and take any comments.
Question. So are you saying that the rest of the board doesn't deserve to know what your ideas are? No, I mean, you're saying they're top secret. Only you and Director Deppie should know.
Well, you're welcome to make your own list. But the fact is that if you would like, of course there will be transparency, but the fact is, of course, all board members will know of all the sites that we are considering or considering. But the fact is that if I come today and announce, well, we're considering this location and this location without any information as to why we would recommend a certain choice to the community, it seems sort of frivolous discussion and invites people perhaps to worry. We've had recommendations for properties that we eminent domain. We don't want anyone to cause anyone undue stress or concern. We don't want landlords to raise their rates with the idea that we are dedicated to this property or that property. So we are in the information gathering process so that we can fully explain to the community, these are the sites that we consider or will recommend to us, and these are the choices, these are the criteria we chose, and this is what we're recommending to the board. Then the board will have the ability to make a choice that best suits.
You turned a major community issue into a two-person committee issue.
No, we're gathering information so that we have a thorough presentation on January 25th, which I assume, Dr. Debbie assumes as well, will be the first community presentation that we make. There will be others. You would not go before an academic committee with no presentation and just an idea.
Actually, that's sometimes what we do.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's not going to behoove us in the government sector.
Well, it's not about property though, and that's the issue. You're talking about private property. We're not talking about private property when you brainstorm ideas. Use the line.
Wait, so you're saying that there's really... I'm just going to point something out. You know the community center? You know, you promised, you said when you took it over it'd be $1 million. Now it's 1.7 and going up. The director side said that extra $1 million or $700,000 was a learning experience. You did. It's on video. And so is this going to turn into another multi-million-dollar learning experience because you want to do it yourself?
I'm not even sure how to answer this. Let's just not answer because I don't see any reason to answer.
No, I'm saying
I'm saying that this is ridiculous. That in fact, when you do anything, things change all the time. Rachel Sheris-Watt joined the board in 2014, and yes, maybe at that time it was going to be $1 million. And now it's 1.7. We went slowly, carefully deliberately and brought everything to discussion.
Everyone
And we
warned
ended up
her.
at $1.7 million, and I don't feel badly about that.
But everyone warned her, just to let you know.
Is it your money?
And so the other thing is, you do realize any location we take, A, has to be essential services standard. B, you've already said we don't have the capital to build a new building. So how are we going to do this? Where's the money coming from?
Why don't you wait till January 25th?
I think that was really far way off, and I think and so is that part of why we're waiting for El Cerrito's contract?
Yes.
The public safety building is not part of the consideration about.
It was.
Cerrito. It will, I mean, will there be influences? Possibly. If there's a presentation for contracting part of services, that might influence some things we do. But even in 2015, when then Chief Hart was discussing his needs of the building, there was always the consideration that we would never get too small, because we always wanted to make sure that we had room for our department in our building. So there will be a variety of factors considered, but of course I'm aware of the requirements for a police services building.
And there's hardly a fund that.
We will present all that information at the time when we present the required amount of funding.
So we know a new building, the fire board said was like 10 million, or I don't know the quote numbers, but it was like 6 or somewhere in that range. It was expensive. Even the renovation is at around 4 million. So we don't have that capital. You said that yourself.
Yeah, we're not proposing that we build a brand new building. That has never been part of our.
I mean, even the renovation, we don't have the capital.
If the presentation is that we need to do a renovation, that will be, we will have discussed funding options, figured into a long-term budgeting. Luckily, I've been on the finance committee for the last 3 or 4 years. I'm aware of the district's finances, and we will discuss it.
I hate to tell you, you burned all that excess money with the community center. We're right back to where we were in 2014 if you look at the...
I know it delightfully. Should there be an earthquake, children and community members will not be crushed by the roof.
But my point is that our finances are back where we were in 2014.
That's right. Well, we have spent money on improving a capital asset for long-term benefit of the community, which is exactly my edict as a board member. And the fact is that the reason that the fire board is so interested in improving our public safety building is the same reason that we improved the community center, because loss of human life should occur if we have a major earthquake.
Yes, and they have capital now to do it. And
That's wonderful, and I applaud their prudence. That's not the item on this. It's just an update for discussion. But I'm happy to hear from suggestions or hear emails if folks have them.
Chris, do you want to speak at all?
Public comment?
Chris?
Well, one suggestion, I'm sure you want it in writing, but I think the community and Cyrus, particularly since you're concerned about money, is the community needs to put pressure on the fire department and asking them, why are they kicking out the police department? They should be able to make room for police services there. They've expanded a number of their items to really fill the space available, and I'm just going to say, I think the people who are planning this at the fire department are just being a little vindictive, and the community. I mean, and that would solve the funding problem by letting the fire department and the whole.
Avery, you're explosive.
should put more pressure on the fire department to not just kick somebody shaking their head no. But
I have to point out, the fire department has tried to work with the police board, and they've indicated at their meetings they are not even enjoying what's happening.
It's not gonna work.
You're on your own. Yeah.
Are we talking about item?
use your teacher
Can you
voice.
speak up, David?
Safety building.
I think we're talking about item 5, being one, is that where we're at?
No.
All right, Dave.
Not yet.
So we're talking about
No, we're on 5C. Public safety building update.
Is it five? No, it's B.
The numbers keep changing. It's 7. It's 7B, public safety building.
Jump 5 and consider.
Well, depends on which version.
We're not
We're
there
on
yet.
7B.
We're on item B. I'm happy to move item C as soon
I
as.
apologize, I will come up.
Sure.
One quick question. Could you elaborate on the criteria that you're using for looking at alternative sites? I'm not interested in the actual site that you showed, but could you elaborate at least on the criteria that you use?
Sure. I'm not going to give a detailed criteria, but the fact is that we're looking for a certain amount of room. I mean, we're actually open to quite a lot of sites. If it's an empty site, empty being relative or a lot, we're often looking for a level space. We're looking for response time possibility, although we're considering everything throughout Kensington, but of course response time will play a factor. Excuse me. We're looking at whether or not whether the KPPCSD already owns the site. That's very helpful. We're looking at traffic patterns to see what would be happening when there's an emergency response and officers need to leave a site quickly. How close is parking available? How much square footage we have. So those are all considerations. But it's very broad at this time, and then we'll start factoring in more detail. Because we haven't discussed begun discussion with real estate prices and things like that in detail.
It's Lynn Wolter again. If the proposal is from a security firm, and we're talking about emergency situations, Rochelle, you raised the issue of concern about the community center and now it will collapse on children. And so if we have an earthquake and buildings collapse, or we have a fire and there are emergency situations, I don't believe security firm personnel are authorized to execute an evacuation. And I don't know how well versed they would be in helping to rescue a community from a disaster. Additionally, if the notion is to contract out with El Cerrito, my understanding is that El Cerrito would be paying the paychecks for any El Cerrito officer stationed in Kensington. So in the event of an emergency, where would those loyalties lie? Would they lie where the paycheck is issued, or would they lie with a community that is probably going to be written off above a certain elevation? Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, those concerns would matter to the RFP. They're not really considerations about the public safety building as it is right now.
No, I didn't miss anything.
Next person.
John Gutschewing. This is about the idea of splitting the police building from the fire department if we have the opportunity to separate both of them, I think it has some wisdom to put the police department outside of the earthquake fire zone, which would even get it away from the Arlington. If we have a standalone police department, I don't see the humor. Sorry.
No, I'm just a seismologist.
I thought maybe I missed the joke. Besides that, it would be good to have in a spot that'll stand up in an earthquake. The Arlington has got several sections where a very large conduit taking runoff goes under the Arlington. The Arlington, as you can see at several intersections, is already caved in. A good earthquake could make the Arlington unpassable. So I just want the idea that perhaps the good thing is split the two. Thank you.
Oh, that reminds me of a related note to that. So actually, it turns out having the two closer together has a lot of value for the town because police operations are often assisting or aiding the fire operations. Like there have been times when dispatch calls come in for police that will require fire. The police get it faster, it has to do with dispatching arrangement, and they'll actually queue in the firefighters already be on the get-go to leave. So the joint proximity has actually benefited everyone in town.
There are a lot of reasons why keeping the police and fire together makes very good sense.
My name is Andrew Gutierrez, and I would say that the discussions we've had tonight, the disorder upon the dice, would not be tolerated in an academic environment. You know that.
Actually, some of them goes really crazy.
The worst part.
Yeah, and often you don't get it put on the committees because of that. But what happens is that if you start raising questions, issues about things that were raised periphery, then all you do is create confusion. The proposal came in supposedly from a private firm. All of a sudden, it's raised into something where people are concerned about their authority and what they would be doing. We're asking for a proposal from El Cerrito and from other municipalities, and we want to get information. And then all of a sudden we start getting questions about loyalty and other issues that have nothing to do with what is on the table. Kensington is one hell of a crazy place. And I keep wondering, for 25 years, what the hell do people really want? I want good, stable police services that we can afford, that we have economy of scale where people, if they get sick, they get fired, or they do something stupid like Reno.
Are you going off topic now?
And we would have people to fill in. But in fact, we don't, because we don't have economy of scale.
Please, if you want to talk, stand to the left and wait.
So, let's get serious, folks. We got a problem. We have people who apply for positions as chief of police, and after 1 day, 2 weeks, a very short period of time, they quit because we have a really screwed up department. And people who love them, I keep asking why. What is it that they get out of it? Why do we have people who want to keep the status quo? I used to think in terms of the old guard, but in fact it's not the old guard. It really is a Kensington social club that has been controlling this place for a long time, and it needs to stop. Get serious, folks.
3 minutes. Yeah, I guess the mics don't work. Yeah, don't worry. All right, so, okay,
It's turned off.
It turned on.
yes, they're all off, okay. we're going to go on now to 7C, which is the request the Kensington Fire Protection District for permission to engage Ross Strulis Cosenberry Architecture to explore creating a design. Director Sheriff-Watt, can you take that on?
Yes, I apologize. In your agenda, this will be listed as item 5DI. It should be 7CI. I apologize. So I will read this briefly to surmise and then entertain discussion and comments, of course. At the September 11th meeting of the KFPD, the architectural firm Ross Strulis Cosenberry, RDC, presented the current plan for the renovation of the public safety building. This plan has no space allotted for the operations of the KPPCSD or KPD, our district, or the Kensington Police Department. Sorry, I don't want to get too acronym heavy tonight. The firm did spend some time looking at the desired space requirements for both departments, excuse me. And those numbers, we presume, are from the 2015 survey that was done at that time, the space survey. And they concluded, RDC, that it wasn't possible to fit everything desired into the current footprint of the public safety building. They attempted to design a best practices fire department with the space deemed available, and they presented those drawings September 11th. Director Debbie of this board asked RDC if they had attempted to fit both departments into the building, if necessary, using perhaps just essential space designs, and they responded that they did not, as they had not been directed to by the fire district. After some discussion, it was suggested that if the KPPCSD were interested in such a design, the district should pay the architect's costs. The meeting the following night of the KPPCSD, Julie Stein, president of the KPPSD, stated that we were welcome to initiate our own engagement with RDC. Director Debbie proceeded to do that, but Mr. Cosenberry was understandably wary and wanted direction from their board. As all of you know, individual board members do not speak for the board, so as well-meaning as President Stein was, we cannot take her direction as that of the direction of the KFPD board.
It was actually Director Koso who first recommended the idea at their meeting, just to be accurate.
Well, this is quoting our meeting, so at our meeting, Director Stein, President Stein came. So tonight we are proposing that the KPPCSD formally adopt a request to the KFPD to work with them and the RDC to try and find a design solution that would accommodate two public safety departments in 217 Arlington. Director Debbie and myself both wanted, to present figures for that, but unfortunately, because Mr. Cosenberry was so reticent, understandably, we don't have any sums. So we would recommend that we will come back to you after, if the KFPD approves discussion, then we would be able to come back to you and suggest how much it would cost to develop an architectural plan with them for a joint public safety building design.
You might be looking at, like, don't quote me, maybe between 10 and 30,000 if I vaguely remember some of their agendas. I mean, it's not going to be like, maybe it'll be cheaper, but I vaguely remember at least the agendas they've been passing have been more expensive.
I think best practices would be for us to come back after we discuss this.
But the building committee
Yeah,
people.
Chris, do you want to say something?
When they contacted Mark, which is the actor, I was just doing that, what did I find? If they would be going to work it out, and did they have any other discussion about costs, because he was asking him, when they were going to work with us, they were getting
right here.
Excuse me, could you summarize what he
Yeah,
said? Because none of us could hear.
what Chris said was he was unable to get any kind of cost estimate, even a rough estimate, because the architect was unwilling to engage in some kind of estimate without having permission from the fire board.
And he also said that they would not be detailed drawings, it could be done with rough drawings and rough estimates, and so it may not be a very cumbersome process.
Okay. My name is Larry Nagel, and I'm a director, one of the directors of the Kensington Fire Protection District. I'm also one of the co-chairs of the building committee, which was formed to come up with plans for renovation, for either building a new structure or renovating the one that we have. And in seeing this, I'd just like to say that Don and I have spent years speaking with RDC. It's not true that we really wanted to throw the police department out of anywhere. The problem that we had was that the present building has a footprint that has 5,600 square feet in it. It cannot be increased because of earthquake, proximity to earthquake zones. And it is inadequate right now for both the police and the fire. So we went over and over and over with RDC, how can we fix this? And the answer was always the same. You can't, there is no way you can get adequate facilities for both the police department and the fire department in this footprint. I don't know why why the police district would expect the architecture firm, the same architecture firm, to give you a different answer than they've been giving us for the last 2 years. I would be really upset if they did, because I would think that to be, at the very least, unprofessional. And we've already told you what they told us, that there is a room for the two departments. I would hope that after they do their assessment, they would give you exactly the same answer, and of course they are going to charge you money to do that. It seems to me a waste of taxpayers' money. I think you should put the money into doing an architectural assessment of what you need in a separate police district building. But I don't understand why you're asking us, or why you would want to contact our architects. The only possible solution, if you're going to put both police district and fire district in the 5,600 square foot footprint that we are stuck with, we cannot change that, is to give inadequate facilities to both departments. And I think it would be a gross waste of taxpayers' money to spend somewhere upwards of $4 million on a renovation project, knowing that the renovation project is inadequate for the needs of the community even before the construction starts. We're trying to come up with a solution to our problem that will last hopefully another 50 years, maybe only 20 years, but we certainly don't want to come up with a solution that costs $4 million and is inadequate from the get-go. So I don't know how you expect them to tell you some other answer than I just told you.
Okay. Larry, you know how much I respect you and how much I've enjoyed working with you, so please know that first before I begin. First, I think there's some confusion coming from your board. I was told that you were no longer part of the building committee, that President Stein is taking that over. So perhaps there's some confusion.
Never mind who told you that.
Okay.
That is inadequate.
Okay, that's fine. Then I will.
In fact, I have just authored an article for the explaining what I just said,
Okay.
not knowing that this was even coming up.
Well, and then the other fact is that on September 12th, President Stein appeared before our board and told us that we were welcome to discuss with RDC the possibility of putting both agencies in the building.
I think that may be where the confusion came from.
Well, no, it was, I was also told, we can discuss that privately, but, so, there's some confusion in your board, and so I think what we would like to do is have clarification from your whole board, if that is to be the case. The other possibility, we don't believe that you've asked for a variance, or entertained the possibility of a variance with this design. We also are concerned that perhaps that some of the figures that RDC is working with are from 2015. And we've also proposed the possibility that administration is not housed with police services.
But you
So-
are aware of the fact that you've asked for more space since 2015, so the situation has gotten worse.
No, we haven't. I've clarified that. That was a misnomer, and I've said absolutely both to you and to Don that we were not asking, and Director Duffy as well, that we are not asking for more space, that we understand the limitations of the building, that we are happy to discuss it, we are happy to clarify what our needs are, and that we really would like to work with a solution as part of this process.
Let me just interject, by the way, the variance is probably not going to happen because the same state law that says if these renovations are more than 50% or more of the fair market value of the building, that you can't do the renovations. But that same state law says any agency that grants a variance may be liable for any death or injury resulting from an earthquake. So I doubt if you're going to get a variance.
Okay, but we want to explore
RDC
that.
has advised us that they're working on variance.
Okay.
They're the experts, we have to get the variance.
So, you know, I appreciate your coming before us and sharing, but my recommendation to my board is still going to be that we make a formal request and then clarify some of these side issues about who is speaking for which board and how we are continuing forward. Also, that you are in the process of having a community meeting on November 16th, and we'll be entertaining community feedback, and I think it's important that we keep the process open.
And I think what raises the issue about whether the public safety building with 5,600 square feet cannot hold both is when you start to see things like a dining room table with 6 seats or 8 seats so that the two shifts can get together, but yet there's this large conference room. And then you have also 3 bathrooms for 3 firefighters, and you wonder, is some of this space really nice, but is it really necessary? And then you have this workout room, which has several sets of equipment. You start to say, well, you know, if you're talking about a community asset for the community, and I think there's a lot of reasons why having police and fire together makes a lot of sense. Does it really make sense for one district to not try to come to some accommodation with the other district on that? So it's, I think, some of the reasons why people are starting to question whether there is truly no room for the police in the community.
Well, we can only believe the architect that we hired advises.
No, absolutely, and we understand. And then, you know, I have great professional respect for you, Larry. It's been wonderful to me in my tenure as the board and very helpful. So I will seek, for my board's sake, to clarify so that we really get some answers, but thank you for your comments and for your working with us and attending tonight's meeting. Appreciate it.
Louder.
I am so sorry. experienced professional, and it tells me that when you're trying to do a building, you have to have a site, or at least maybe a few sites, but 10 is a lot. And so I can understand why this architect is throwing their hands up, because it just is just saying, I don't know what to do. And you have to have a site so that they can do a program. The program that comes from you for the use, but then they can do the program for the building. Secondarily, and most importantly to me, is that I'm certainly hoping that one of the sites that you are looking at very seriously is the park, because that was given to this community by the community, and that is not meant for a public building. And it would be just very, very upsetting to a good majority of people in Kensington. And then on a personal note today, I completely agree with you, Eileen. I think if we can find some way to keep them together, and I'm not involved with it, but that building committee, is that on a personal level, I needed to get fingerprinted today because our son is trying to foster a child. To do that, we had to be fingerprinted. I got to go 5 minutes from my house and get fingerprinted today, which actually was kind of a funny thing. Because you do this to criminals too, it's pretty intense. But it was great to do that. We also have the vacation watch. We also have the emergency contact key program. They don't have those. And these are so Kensington specific, and we really need to look at what this community gets. It doesn't go away. So if we can keep them together, I'm happy.
I want to just clarify, there's a bit of confusion. Just 10 sites is what we're proposing for temporary and possibly long-term housing. There will always have to be temporary housing. With discussion with the architect is only one site, the current public safety.
Okay, that wasn't.
Sorry, I apologize.
Did staff, this case, I'm representing the Kensington Property.
Can you speak up, please?
You have to speak loudly.
I'm representing the Kensington Property Owners Association Board of Directors. As you may know, we have been encouraging this type of engagement between the two boards for some time, and pleased that it may happen. To start out with, I think the KPPCSD needs to define what its minimum space needs are for police services. It's quite obvious to me that the 1,200 plus square feet that you have now in the building would not be available to you going forward. So I think you're going to have to look for something less than that may provide you with just basic police staffing, and possibly even look towards contracting for evidence rooms and other such things. So being a little bit creative and coming forward with this. And at the same time, I think the fire board, by and large, is probably willing to engage in the discussion because, for example, right now the initial plans call for the district manager to have an office in the building. I don't believe that's necessary. That district manager can be located off-site, possibly housed in the same location where the KPPCSD administrative staff would be housed, because it's inappropriate, frankly, to have administrative staff co-located with the police. No other jurisdiction does that, because you need to have security in a police facility. You don't want to have co-locating administrative staff in that facility. Secondly, you talked about a waiver with regard to the state law as it relates to locating a building that is approximate within 50 feet of a earthquake zone. There is no waiver in the state law. There are exemptions, but as was pointed out, if this building that is going to be renovated costs more than 50% of the existing value of the building, you cannot build it. There is no waiver. And I would urge you to read the laws quite clearly and the regulations associated with the law. So, frankly, I would not engage in a contract yet until such time as it is determined whether it's feasible regard to feasibility, whether you can pass that provision law, the 50% provision. And if you can't do that, then there's no way you can do anything with that building at all. And I don't know exactly how you go about getting that value. I know that the fire board is talking to the state architect. I'm not sure that the state architect is the right entity to talk to because they deal with building codes. They don't deal with values of the police station, fire station, excuse me. I think what you're going to need to do, and I'm really talking to the fire board in this case, is reach out to the county because they are the permitting agency and they have had some experience in this, and the state agency that writes the regulations, which is the Department of Transportation. So, anyways, I think there's a lot of hurdles to go through, but I would start out by at least identifying what your minimum space needs are, because I don't think you can go forward without understanding that. And before you do a contract, I think you need to know whether it's feasible to put it there in the first place. Thank you.
We are in the process of engaging, conducting interviews to determine exact or estimated space use that we would need that is current information. And so I absolutely agree with Mr. Stout. And then the second part of his question, there would be no contract yet. We would bring back a contract. Should you agree, should the fire board agree that we are allowed to talk to RDC, then we would come back with a contract for approval. So this is not the request for spending funds tonight.
So there was just mention that you're interviewing somebody to determine what the current needs are. Who is that?
We'll be talking with the general manager, with the interim chief of police, and any other prudent people that would supply us information about current space.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that meant you had engaged a consultant.
No.
Okay. So I would like to reiterate what it is that David Spath said. I think it's imperative that the current needs be evaluated. I also want to encourage you to have a joint public meeting with the fire board. The community deserves to know what all is on the table, what's at stake. If the current fire building cannot be rebuilt, the community then needs to make a decision about a rather large expenditure, and we'll need to make decisions about alternate locations, and those matters really do.
No, we're talking about request to engage.
Okay. So I just want to encourage there to be a really public process. There is a lot of service at stake here. Melissa Holmes-Snyder identified some of the lovely services that we enjoy, and there certainly are many more serious services that the community has come to rely on. It would be nice to have everything available to the community so the community can decide how it wants to spend its money. Thank you.
All right, the last three comments, right here. Siri, did you want to comment?
We were on track to have a joint public meeting. Then the fire board informed us that we were not involved in the building, so we then at that time.
You opted to step out at that meeting. You said you were asking to leave the meeting. I remember at that meeting, you had said, well, we are going to step out is because, well, it sounds like you don't have space for us. And I remember that meeting.
Yes.
You opted out.
Thank you. I opted out.
After we were told.
After we were told there was no space in the building, it did not seem that we had a role other than as individual board members or individual citizens at that meeting.
Well, we could have still discussed everything. And then you said you didn't want to have meetings, you still needed more time to evaluate all of your options and wouldn't be joining them at that time.
We wouldn't be joining them for options for housing the police permanently at that, by the time they were talking about October 12th. They moved it to November 16th, but even then we decided that we would desire more time to establish all the criteria and the different options. Sorry.
Just as also
being used for the fire, and then nobody came, none of those people came to the fire board meetings to make the same objections. Tonight, we have all these people who have their opinions as to whether what we should do and what we should consult with. Let's see, what was the fire board meeting? What's that one? I can't remember. The last one, oh, well, it was, the night they cut the power.
Yeah.
Were
The
there
next
3
one is
people?
Thursday night.
There were 3 people of us at the meeting. And why weren't you all telling the fire board this same thing to try and get together? So this is as much a public comment for the public to urge both groups to do whatever.
Well, I can't agree more that I know that KPOA has been urging both boards to work together, and we've also asked that you conduct your meetings, your building meetings as a public meeting, so that some of these issues can get worked out, and it's unfortunate that hasn't happened, and we continue to suggest that strongly, and hopefully more people in the community will do so. Again, I actually support this motion, although I think we need to clarify that this is specifically for the renovation of the existing public safety building.
Speak up.
Speak up.
Okay, sorry. What I'm asking is that they clarify in their motion that the work with the architect is in regards to the existing public safety building renovation, not talking about new sites at this point in time. And, yes, it may be not at this point ready to move forward with the actual contractor, so you know a little bit more. But I am hoping that what Director Nagel is saying is not actually accurate. And I do agree that, looking at the building plans, there is a lot of space allocated to the fire department that is not currently how they use that facility. And, we have training rooms, we have extra room for, the family room. All nice things to have, and definitely our fire personnel deserve to have a nice place, but we don't have that option in Kensington. And there are plenty of old fire stations in the Bay Area that are not even as nice as the one we have. So, I just think that we have to look out what is important for Kensington. Your board doesn't have the money to build another building. And the fire board doesn't even have enough building to build another building. So we need to get together on this, because you're looking at huge costs for the taxpayers of this community. And everybody's just doing their own thing. I mean, it is a bad show. It is really bad performance on everybody's part if you don't come together. This meeting in November, it needs to have both boards there. I'm sorry. It is ridiculous that the fire board's going ahead with one meeting. You guys are doing another meeting sometime in January, and no one's working together on this. So pull it together. That's all I can say. Really, you gotta pull it together. But this is a good step. I think it's the right thing to do right now to try to see if we can get the fire board to work with you and getting your department back in that building.
It's also been suggested that it would be a lot cheaper to give the firemen a gym membership than space for the,
Actually, this is a general manager, he just sits there. The directors are like...
Wait, please, someone is speaking.
But wouldn't the general manager have any idea or recommendation?
Well, the general manager was not, his recommendation and work is not prudent to this right now. We're in the process. He
knows someone with experience about this to get advice?
Yes, absolutely. He has talked with us about how, about space requirements, about how the building of a public building works. So if Tony would like to add, he is welcome to, but tonight all we're asking is that the KFPD authorize us to work with the architect.
Well, I mean, as a board, we should be working on this. Like, the fact you compartmentalize this so much that the rest of the board doesn't seem to know or be able to read these things is essentially draining the amount of brain power for this important thing down to 2/5.
Well, there's something called the ground
the Brown Act means that unless it's on the agenda, we can't discuss it.
Well, then we can put it on the agenda. This is the point of having this. We're actually
That's what
discussing
we've
it.
done. That's what we've done. And here it is.
Yeah.
But you're saying there's all these other reports and things the general manager has been saying, but no, the rest of the board isn't getting any of this.
If you would like me to formalize and make a presentation about the space requirements and things, that would be prudent. But until we're allowed to talk with RDC, it's sort of irrelevant whether or not we want 600 square feet or 1,000 square feet. If we're not allowed to talk with them, square feet don't matter.
Don't you know the amount of square feet you need is independent of talking with the architect, and that we have some information. You've been to some of the fire board meetings, and like, you remember Kevin Hart had talked about all of this and told it to the architect and told it to the board, so that information is already in our system.
Yes, but what Kevin Hart desired is different than what in 2015 is different possibly in some ways than what our general manager and current incarnation of the KPD needs now, and administration needs now in 2020 and beyond.
So,
Regulations have changed, needs have changed.
why? So we've expanded administration so much?
No, just very. So, we all have a bandwidth for so much information. So what we're trying to do as board members and directors and as community is to cast our attention to what is most relevant and prudent at that time. So while history informs all of our decision making, some of the history isn't really helpful at this point.
Well, I think the general manager and chief of police should prepare a report of what they have told the building committee so we can all be brought up to speed.
They could. It would also mean additional work that is not really helpful to the day-to-day operations of our district. When Director Duffy and myself will bring that information to you.
When? Next meeting?
Well, we told you January 25th. We've also told you there will be other items up for discussion in November and December. We don't want to give them busy work to do. What we want is health and safety and financial security.
And there will be a public safety update at every meeting.
Yeah, but I'm saying so, but wait, so we're talking about the public safety or the police, now the police aspect of the public safety building is busy work. That's what we don't want to give them busy work.
Yeah, I don't want to give them extra reports to write.
Well, reports are good. They create public records that people can read, people can think, the board can read them all, and we can actually apply all our thinking together.
Well, they don't serve for the entertainment of directors who don't have enough time.
What?
So my understanding is that the architect also is familiar with building police structures, and so it makes sense to meet with that architect as well and to understand what we can do. And we've all discussed the possibility of contracting out possibly evidence, and that would free up a little bit of space. It may not be worthwhile space to give up. It may be that it makes more sense to have evidence. It may be that we could have storage of other things off-site. And I think talking to the architect makes sense to understand what are the minimum space requirements realistically that we can have to have a functioning police department. So I do support talking with the architect.
Yeah, I guess it's an
an
esoteric question. Aren't we already working with the fire district?
Yes, but what we're talking about is working with the architect to understand better what space we might be able to have, what might be the minimum space for the police. And what is your motion?
I move that the KPPCSD request that the KFPD agendize the authorization for Ross Drulis Kusenberry, RDC, to work with both boards, but specifically the KPPCSD, on the renovation of 217 Arlington to find a design solution that would accommodate 2 public safety departments.
And can I add to that, to identify the minimum space needs for the police, or is that in your mind inherent in your motion?
It is inherent.
Okay. Then I will second it if you give me your piece of paper. Okay, Director Madawi?
Aye.
Director, Chair Swat?
Yes.
Vice President Hassai?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes as well, so that passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, the next item I'm going to let our general manager introduce, and that's the contract for an interim chief of police services with the Contra Costa Sheriff's Office.
Thank you. I'll try to speak up so everybody can hear me. This is a, currently we're at a place.
One second. You know, I realize it's unfortunate the sound system is down. We have space at the front. If you're having difficulty, we can pause for a moment so folks can move forward. There's 4 seats here. We know we would love to allow you to sit where you would like. But if you need to, please, let's maybe and so that would be fine. Yeah, that would be fine. Yeah. So that people can hear. Tony, do you want to pull that up one or how that
What if I stand in the middle? Does that work a little better?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
You can even bring the podium over.
We just recently, we completed a 2-month background process to offer a job to a police officer, a police captain for interim police chief. And we had agreed to contractual terms. In fact, the draft contract, I think, was on the last agenda. The individual was fitted for a uniform and then withdrew from the process the next day. So we were left, after spending 2 months of doing the background process, with nothing. Now, we had done a wide recruitment effort. I was checking my notes, and the recruitment started seven months ago, probably over 7 months ago, but aggressively about 7 months ago. When you're recruiting for a temporary police chief, it's not your standard recruitment process. You don't just put out advertisements, put them on job boards, and put them on the internet. That's what's done for permanent positions. Temporary positions are more word of mouth. Temporary people who are looking for temporary positions aren't looking at those at recruitment areas like that on the internet or on job boards. The temporary people, those who are interested in temporary positions, generally work through the Police Chiefs Association for the state of California, and they get their interest known to recruiters. It involves a lot of phone calls, a lot of word of mouth, and I worked with probably the top recruiter of police chiefs in the state of California. He has 20 years experience recruiting police chiefs, 15 years experience in placing interim assignments. So he knows everybody that's available for an interim assignment. He keeps current resumes, and he also interviews people. So when a person is available, he'll call them up and check with them to see if they're interested in the position before forwarding a name. So he does this pre-screening, which is really helpful. We went through 3 or 4 phases of this. We would provide 3 or 4 people, then we would interview those people, sometimes multiple times, and then we go back, and he would provide another 3 or 4 people. And I also contacted some chiefs in the peninsula and other chiefs in the area to see if there's other potential good candidates. The recruiter's opinion, by the way, and I talked to him today about this because I was reviewing the process to see if there was ways we could have improved it or ways we could have done things differently. And he basically said that we had done a very extensive recruitment, one of the most extensive recruitment for a temporary position of any city he's worked with. So the result is we had a number of, I would say, acceptable candidates. These are candidates who would come and work, probably at a lower rate of pay, not make many changes, be available to the public, keep things going slowly. It wouldn't be a different department. Because really the best candidates are the candidates that aren't in the job market. The best candidates are not candidates looking for work, but employers are looking for them. But how do you find these people? it's really difficult to locate these candidates, and they have to be also interested in coming to Kensington. That was one of the problems we had with the people that we recruited. It seemed like the more they heard about Kensington, the less interested they were. That was not true in all the cases. There was also issues of commuting. Some of them were not nearby. There was also the salary was an issue. I did talk to 9 people that I thought were worth speaking to. And some of them I spoke to 3 or 4 times. I thought there was one candidate that I particularly thought would work well here, but in the end he withdrew from consideration. And some of them had personal reasons too for not wanting a job. The reasons they told me for not being interested in Kensington, in addition to commute and pay level and personal reasons, included the reputation of the police department, discord in the community, and several of them watched meetings of the board, and they thought there was some lack of civility in our public meetings. And that influenced some of the candidates, not all of them. It did influence the person that we had offered the position to. That was one of the reasons he gave that he withdrew. So I went back and recontacted the same people I contacted, some of the chiefs, the recruiter, the county sheriff, to see if we could locate anybody else. And the sheriff called me back and said, how interested are you in finding a good candidate? I told him I'm really interested. Let me see, he said, what I can do. I may be calling you back. So he called back and indicated there was someone in his department that might be interested in coming to work for Kensington at market rate. We have to pay the market rate. We haven't paid market rate. We haven't paid market rate for the police officers or our management. And if no matter what we do in the future, whether we keep our department or whether we contract our department, we probably will have to talk seriously about paying the market rate to attract people at that level. Now, this particular person was not a retiree. All the other people I talked to were retirees. This was a current employee who was not in the job market and was highly regarded. But he said, I'm willing to lend him for a limited period of time, but you'd have to pay the market rate, in other words, what the sheriff pays. And the sheriff has a different benefit schedule, a benefit cost than we do. And we'd have to pay that, and it was, for a 6-month period, it was over $200,000 a year for pay and benefits. And we had some vacancies in the current department, including I had budgeted for a temporary police chief. We could use those funds to pay for this person. So I told the sheriff, well, I'd like to pursue this some more. So I met with this individual on a weekend day privately to talk this out. And he had actually one of the characteristics that was unusual. He really was interested in coming to work in Kensington. And he really had interest in Kensington, which is really what you want, really. If you're not interested in Kensington, why are you applying? You know, you really want someone who's really interested in the community, wants to do the best in the community, wants to improve the community. And this person had all those traits and had ideas, too. This is the first candidate I talked to who had ideas about improving everywhere from day-to-day operations to larger operations, and could be also of assistance in evaluating the RFP proposals. We had some discussion here about some of the RFPs, about El Cerrito and about this other company who I don't even know who they are exactly. But you would have analysis and review at a high level, a high professional level. So I told the sheriff, let's pursue this. So we have pursued it. We reached the point where we have a draft contract that's been approved by county council, and it's one of the things that's different though about this contract, that's a little different, is that we would really be hiring the sheriff's department, contracting with Contra Costa County. So technically the sheriff's department would be supervising the position because our contract is with the county. So it wouldn't be the general manager that says in the report. It would be the sheriff's department that would supervise the position. And I wanted to, since we don't have experience in contracting, I thought I'd double check the process to see if I'd missed something or there was maybe something that we should be considering. So I talked to the city manager of Danville, where this particular person, Mr. Simpkins, worked as the chief for 7 years. And the city manager told me there was never any problem with coordination with the sheriff's department. There were absolutely no issues. He melded in with the department and the community. They all worked together as a team, which sounded exactly what we need. And the city manager there has worked for the city for about 30 years. And so they've never had any problems in working with the sheriff's department on a contractual basis for the chief position in that time period. This, if the board decides to approve this, it will need a Board of Supervisors approval. And the Board of Supervisors, whatever happens, the board would still have to act on it and approve it, which would be next week sometime. So I hope I didn't see too long, and I hope you all heard me. Okay, thank you. Does anyone want to ask me anything directly? Or?
Yeah, will the chief be located here?
Yes. Physically
The
located.
interim chief?
Yes.
But supervised by the county sheriff?
Well, that would be a technical basis. But really, we would be subject to what our needs are and what the community needs are.
5 days a week?
Or, you know, I'll tell you, these jobs are 724. And he would be in the office 5 days a week. And by the way, he's here.
You know, for the benefit of people, could anyone making a comment please stand at the podium? Or Tony, can you repeat the question, because I think it's hard to
I
hear.
want to say Mr. Simpkins is here at the meeting. He's in the back of the room. So he's the short gentleman.
So I just have a couple of comments, questions. So just looking over at the service plan, I mean, your contract is a pretty sparse contract, and so it doesn't really describe a lot of the expectations that you would have. So for instance, you know, our police chief comes to the county, to the board meetings, you know, attends public functions. None of that's in here. There's a big question I have about just issues of liability. Obviously, I guess we have a car for the police chief, so that would be the expectation that he would use the car of the district. But this stuff like that, really, I think should be part of the contract. So it's very specific, and then of course liabilities, like he gets killed in Kensington. Sorry, I don't. But I mean, those kinds of, you know, are you indemnified by the county for his actions? So is it that? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to hear. Okay. But I mean, I think some of those things need to be hammered out and just, you know, I know like that there's so many things, but this seems sort of rushed. And I'm not saying that I understand your reasons for pushing this forward, and I think you've thought through it, but I just think that you need to, there's a lot of details that still need to be figured out.
I'd like to respond. Yeah, I don't want to show.
And just one other thing I just want to say is, and this is just more, I understand the issue about the market value, and I really, honestly, I was really shocked when I saw the salary, not the salary, but the benefits. And so for every $1 of salary, Contra Costa takes $1 and pays into the retirement fund, which so it's 100%, you know, of salary for the retirement benefit, which is incredibly large. I mean,
For sheriffs.
For the sheriff,
Yeah.
all of them.
Not everybody.
You know, I've seen up to 50% from police departments, but 100%, that just blew me out of the water. No wonder it's so expensive.
Well,
So-
that's something for Supervisor Joya to take up.
Yeah, and I actually texted him, so, just so you know. Tony, and we, response.
Well,
I'd like to let Tony respond.
the details of that would be worked out between me and Mr. Simpkins. And he would do the normal functions of a police chief. He would have objectives and goals, and we would work on them together. And they would be the normal things that a police chief would do. I think this is really a kind of an opportunity, I think, for the community, the way I look at it. It doesn't happen very often that someone really good falls into your lap who's not in the job market. and is really an outstanding candidate. I know it's not an inexpensive choice, but I think the potential investment is very high. And I've heard a lot of people say in these meetings, and one of the problems we have in Kensington with the police department is leadership. We have leadership problems. Well, this addresses the leadership problems.
I do appreciate all the work you've done.
Speak up, Dave.
I do appreciate the work the general manager's done, and looking at the credentials of Mr. Simpkins. Sorry. It looks like he would be an exemplary chief of police, having spent several years as a chief of police already in Danville. I think just adds to the credentials that he has. I think you probably do have sufficient budgetary capacity to do this because you have at least 2 positions that have been vacant throughout the year. But that then brings a question as to recruitment. Do you envision having to hold, for example, the second sergeant position vacant for the rest of the year? I know you referenced the fact that you didn't think you were going to be able to fill it. Was that because you're going to hold it vacant, or you don't think there are either candidates within the department who could be then promoted, or there are sufficient candidates out there to hire? Because I would hate to see you then hold that position vacant and make no attempt to fill it. The same is true of the corporal position, because you do have a corporal position in the budget. I don't know that you've given any consideration for advancing anyone within the department to that position. But with that, would you also continue to vigorously recruit for that position as well, or actually step that position down to another office position and recruit for it? So I would hate to see you not recruit and hold these positions for salary savings to meet the needs to cover the cost of the new chief.
So the budgeted temporary police chief position covers about 2/3 of the compensation. And last year, due to Chief Hull's success, we had 3 really good candidates apply for positions, one of whom was interested in the sergeant position. One of them was a potential sergeant. And so I budgeted because of this potential candidate, but the process, this is not automatically given to this person. There would have to be an internal testing process, obviously. We're working on that. As it happened, all 3 of them failed their background investigations. And so we were unable to hire any of them. I still think we need to fill a sergeant position. I'm just deferring it to the next fiscal year.
All the way until next fiscal year?
Yeah, which is not that, it takes a month or 2 to test for the position in any of that.
Right, but the fiscal year is running from July to July.
Right.
So we're talking about.
So we're deferring it to July.
Would one of the tasks of the chief be to recruit?
Yes, I discussed that with him. He's also an instructor at the academy and has mentioned the possibility. He knows some potential candidates, and we haven't taken the conversation any further, but he has contacts that we don't have access to.
I just would question why you want to defer to the next fiscal year. You certainly have enough budgetary capacity to cover the salary, because of the salary savings that you've already approved now.
But let me give you a slightly different answer. I would discuss it with the chief, and if the chief felt differently, then I would come back with a different proposal to do it.
I would certainly recommend to the chief that you push fulfilling that position. Thank you.
I'd like to say that I'm in favor of going forward with hiring a 10th interim chief through the Contra Costa County Sheriff's Department. While the salary appears high, those who've done their research know that the compensation package for a captain is similar for both Alameda and Contra Costa counties. Wages and benefits are high. Because we're not hiring a retired annuitant like former Chiefs Hart or Kyle, where we did not pay for their benefits, and because of the competition to fill open chief positions, we are truly between a rock and a hard place. In order to get a qualified, experienced chief willing to work with our well-known issues, we need to pay market rate, and that is what the county charges for a temp contract. If we can get an experienced chief, keeping in mind that neither Hart, Kyle, nor Harmon had experience as a chief, we can begin to make changes that will benefit us over the short and long term. So I support voting for the contract to hire Mr. Simpkins.
I should correct that Chief Hart had multiple years as chief and had the supervisory certificate to be chief.
Certified Kevin Harkin had never been a chief of police before. He had supervised divisions in the state. Kevin Kyle had been chief of police at I believe Santa Clara. He had overseen.
And he left after 8 days.
Yes, he did.
So you're hiring another interim chief. I want to point out once again, as you've extended the time to response in the RFP, that this is due to the fact this department has been kept interim. And again, we're going to have an interim. And this time, we're going to have somebody at the helm who is going to be supervised by an agency which has no relationship, virtually no relationship to this community, and at the expense, a high expense, of sopping up the monies which should go to hiring officers to keep a proper complement of officers here, which you haven't done for years. I think this is wholly wrong-headed.
I will say that we don't have a full complement, but it's not for lack of trying.
Well, it's difficult to fill those compliments when your department is constantly on the verge of being disabled and completely dissolved.
And when they fail a background check.
Well, that brings up questions for why they were not pre-vetted before they went into background check. Because someone who knows how to identify candidates has ways of, picking people who will pass through background, not have major problems.
Paul Doral again. When this item first appeared on the agenda, several people asked me, what about the voting rights ordinance? Because this is a contracting out of a pretty important part of our police department. And so I wanted to point out that the voting rights ordinance has a specific provision for temporary contracts for assistance in emergency circumstances. And I would consider that our inability to find a chief of police to take this job, including 2 who backed out at the last minute for reasons that remain very obscure, and if there were exit interviews or other information about that, I would certainly hope it would be made available to who I hope will be our next interim chief. I think it's clear that we do have a crisis of management in the police department. We're not getting it done. We need to get it done. And this seems like not only the only opportunity we have, but a good opportunity. So I support it.
I object to that, but it's surprised when I'm
Louder,
I
please.
probably can't do it. You want to wait for me? Just read slower.
The president might do?
Yeah, because I'm getting louder.
Okay, I object to the outrageous price for another interim chief of police. We need to hire a permanent chief. It appears that the only plan that makes this cost possible is to outsource the police by Christmas. I'm just reading what I've been told to read. Thank you. Well, it is.
He doesn't want to say something. I just want to say I want to appreciate the general manager who is continuing and the interim chief of police on your ongoing work and discussions, both with Contra Costa County and other law enforcement agencies. And I understand how difficult having been a board member when Mr. Kyle decided to leave after 8 days, how difficult and upsetting that is to your flow and to your process. So I thank you deeply, because only because you have built relationships with other agencies to even have this offer on the table. But that leads me to some concerns I have. First is a fiscal one. I tend to be, maybe not everyone believes this, but pretty conservative fiscally on behalf of the district. And I find this a very expensive plan. I'm concerned about holding the second sergeant position open because I don't want to stop recruitment, yet I'm worried about allotting those funds should someone come along. And so my recommendation would be to first have a mid-year budget review meeting of the Finance Committee before I would feel comfortable approving this. And this is absolutely no reflection on the qualifications of Captain Simpkins, whom I have not met, but appears to be an outstanding and well-regarded candidate. So thank you for that, I think, the board president.
I have a question though. Why is it at the end you say we're going to need more interim chiefs of police in your report?
It's, it depends on when the decision is made on contract. And if the decision extends beyond 6 months, then we would need, potentially need more, another temporary chief. I'm just alerting you to that possibility.
I support the hiring of Captain Simpkins. We have spent a long time looking for someone to fill this role, and I think that this is the best option that we have at this time. I was saddened at the number of good candidates that turned us down. I'm very happy that Captain Simpkins has an interest in Kensington and an interest in helping us. I wish it were less expensive, but the reality is this is the market rate. And we keep thinking that we can hire retired people, we could hire retired officers, that they'll come in, they'll be happy to work in Kensington. We've asked people who have come up with these ideas to give us the candidates. They haven't come up with anyone. One problem that we have with the position that we have been using of retired chiefs is that we're limited to 960 hours in a year. We're limited in how much we could pay them. And we know that our overall compensation for officers is market rate, but our salaries are low. They have, our retirement burdens is where the costs are. And so we need to be realistic on what salaries for good police officers are going to be. And it's interesting that the sheriff has very generous benefits, and I hope Gail will pursue Supervisor Joy on that. But I think this is our best option at this time. And he is here for a temporary time, and I hope that through him we'll be able to find a successor if we need that will help us. One of the things that I want to mention also to Tony had mentioned at the KIC forum a couple of weeks ago that sometimes the best people for a job are not looking for a job. And we were very fortunate to be able to get a very fine candidate. And as much as I don't like the price that goes along with it, I'm really happy to support this proposal. And so I would like to make the motion that you can talk, but I want to make a motion that that we approve this contract with the clarification that the ICOP should be subject to the supervision of the sheriff. And, no, of the sheriff. That it has to be the sheriff. It's a, yeah. And also that we authorize the general manager to negotiate and execute the contract subject to the approval as to the form of the general counsel. And then any remaining board members that want to make comment can go ahead.
I would like to know more about what you expect this interim chief to accomplish, because this is a very expensive price tag, and in fact, it's not one that I would like to see setting a precedent. This is a perfect illustration of why trying to maintain, you know, the right kind of police force that we know we need on our own without any partnership is near impossible, without any partnership at all. And it's in a world where, you know, alliances and partners make people stronger. You know, this idea of going it alone all the time is really, really expensive. And in fact, we have to spend resources on things that take away from being able to spend on officers. I think officers are where we need to put the resources, maybe not to this level, frankly, but, you know, having to do all the other things the department has to do without economies of scale make it impossible, frankly. And if we could even just shift the balance of where our resources were going, so we could spend less and actually get certain kinds of services that we don't even really have now. No back office, no real, you know, HR service, a lot of things we don't have. And, you know, frankly, getting well-trained officers, giving them opportunities professionally is really important. And more than anything, you know, judgment. We see every day stories in the paper with tragic consequences, in some cases, life-ending consequences, and legal and fiscal consequences.
Today, too.
Today. I don't even know about today already. But, so that is really important, and I think this illustrates in a nutshell the rock and the hard place that we're at. But I also want to know what you expect in hopefully a full 6 months of working with this, you know, seems to be very fine individual. You know, why should we go here? And I also want to make sure that we do have the fiscal ability to go here. I know a lot of times, because even though we've tried really hard to recruit and fill all these positions, it doesn't happen every year. I want to make sure we have the money. So I want to know, you know, what you expect, and I want to make sure we have the resources for this particular contract. And I would not expect that we would repeat this on hopefully this level.
Well, I would work with the chief on developing a plan, but my observation as a civilian manager of the police department, I'm not a chief, as a civilian overseer, is I think there's an opportunity for many improvements internally in the department. And Mr. Simpkins came to walk through the department today and already had quite a lengthy list of ideas before just by walking through. And I've noticed that good people, it doesn't take long to figure out what's wrong and what needs to be fixed. A lot of that is not visible to the public, but it leads to motivating officers to work at a higher level, to getting the training they want, and organizing that training, to having internal procedures that minimize the kinds of incidents that you're talking about. It seems like those are areas we need huge improvement on, and it hasn't, they just lapsed over time. I'm only seeing that as a civilian manager. I think that's the chief areas, and I think that leads to a better quality officer, better internal department. I also want to mention, but this really is a board decision. I will work with whatever decision the board wants. I'm not sure Mr. Simpkins will be available if we wait a few months to do more analysis on this. But there could be other people available. I would have to check the job market and everything. And I will try to keep them, if you want to delay the decision. My own guess, and no one has said this to me, but I was
Mr. Spathix, we have the budget room. You talked about covering at least 2/3 that through the temporary position, and there often are, there are variances, both positives and negatives.
We have the budget space. It doesn't mean we have to delay filling a sergeant position. We might be able to do it in the latter months of this fiscal year. We have to use some of the funding for the position.
But he would be tasked with recruitment as part of his job.
Absolutely. Yeah, he would be. I took recruitment as one of the first areas I discussed with him.
Director Deputy?
Oh, I wanted to answer something. First off, we've run this department successfully for over 70 years, so that's kind of insulting to all the many directors and chiefs of police before you. Second off, all our officers are, because you said that it's impossible for us to run this thing, so.
We know we need improvements. We know that. And we know that we don't have certain things. We don't have enough of certain things. We're not paying our officers enough. So yes, we need to improve things. And it is very difficult to do everything we want to do on our own. And so the same folks who want to say, no contract to get any, and don't want to talk about it, also want improvements, want better leadership. So we have to be real and think really carefully about the ability to partner for certain services.
And over the 70 years, policing has become much more complicated and much more expensive.
And we have access to bomb squad, to K9, all those things through our. Look, El Cerrito even uses Richmond for half their services, so don't even go about the larger department has everything.
I was speaking to the general manager. He answered my questions. I don't really, if you have comments or questions separate from my conversation with the general manager, go ahead and make them. I've had my questions answered. Thank you very much, general manager. And you may make different comments or speak if you will, but I don't need you to answer my questions because they were answered for me.
Also, all officers are fully trained and post-certified.
I know that.
Director Deputy?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Take a pause. Chris is saying he thinks it's too expensive for a temporary chief. Go ahead.
And I have a couple of concerns. One, I did see that what was the city that he worked at?
Danville.
That worked out. They have a chief of police who's managed by the county or the sheriff overseeing our employees who are hired by us. It's a strange arrangement. That's something I'm completely comfortable with either. And finally, I have the same concerns that Sylvia does. It's not clear at all to me what we expect to get. Besides the chief of police, I haven't seen things laid out specific on what kind of improvements will be done. I think what kind of improvements need to be done that would be addressed. So, to me, there's so many questions. It's just, I feel it's too expensive to find. If we're looking for a permanent chief of police, it's going to be expensive, but then we might have a good discussion for someone to be there for 3 to 6 months and then leave. It doesn't feel right to me.
Yes.
This is a little unusual, but maybe the best thing to do is ask Captain Simpkins to address some of these things. He's been the chief in Danville. He's worked in similar situations. And what does he perceive as some of the approaches? Would you mind, Steve?
Also, some work that are primarily financial, not answered. Not on the clock yet, right?
Good evening, board and residents of Kensington. As introduced, my name is Steve Simpkins, and I'm a captain with Contra Costa Sheriff's Office, and I previously served as the chief of police in Danville from 2010 to 2017, so I have recent relevant experience in the role of police chief. we may not be able to answer tonight, but I can tell you that the role of a police chief, first and foremost, is to build conditions of trust between three different entities. That's internally in the police department, externally with the community, and laterally among city government and local agencies. That's the very first thing that a police chief needs to do, is to build that trust. And it's by doing things that, as you mentioned, is will the chief be at local meetings, will the chief be seen publicly? You know, the community and the cops and the other agencies want a police chief that's accessible, available, and can make decisions and take care of the needs of the community, identify the community, reach out to the community leaders who know what they want to see and what they want to have done. I understand that the price tag is high. I didn't negotiate my, in terms of my employment with the sheriff's office. I've been there for 26 years, and during that time I've been blessed to move up the ranks to an executive level. I'm not involved in negotiating the salary and benefits, and as pointed out, the benefit load is high. But that's not why I'm coming here. The reason that I'd like to come here is for professional development. I've seen the struggles that you've had in your community, and it's an opportunity for me to try and take what I have learned in 26 years as a police officer and 7 years as a chief to see what I can do to help your community. If that works for you, that's fantastic. I also understand if it doesn't, it's very expensive, and I completely understand that. But my job would be to build those conditions of trust in those three entities there. Specifically, some of the goals that I would have is to look at how does your police department function? How is it hiring? How is it recruiting? Many of the things that I've seen, all the concerns that the community would have, I've had to experience those problems in, so I can offer some expertise. That expertise, unfortunately doesn't come cheap. I'm not in the position to where I want to separate employment with the sheriff's office. I work there. It's been more than half my natural life. I appreciate the fact that the sheriff is very concerned about providing public safety everywhere in the county, and the sheriff and Mr. Constantinos worked out a potential agreement that's up to all of you. And if that works for you, that's fantastic. I'll do the best I can to help your community. If it doesn't, I also understand I don't take anything personally. It's expensive. And that's the bottom line. But as a police chief, you have the responsibility to do a lot of things, and I have the expertise to go in and take a look at what you've been doing. And it's not about what has happened or any lack of anything in the past. It's about what do we do to take the organization to a higher level moving forward. Because you've had this organization since I believe it was about 1948 or so, I think it was. And so clearly there have been some successes along the way, and we need to build on those successes and take it to a newer level. So, do you want to pay for it is the question. And that's not a question that I can answer. So, but if anybody had any specific things that you want to ask me, I'm happy to answer questions on the spot.
You as a board have wasted a lot of our tax dollars on bringing so-called expert consultants. So here we have a chance to really do something about the morale of the department that has deteriorated. We are losing good people. So I welcome you actually spending our money wisely for the gym. And I also want to caution you that if you decide to go ahead and hire the gentleman, please find somebody else to send your agendas out and do all the menial work for you. You have burdened the chief of the interim chief of police with doing secretarial work for you. What happened to Mr. Dice's Taj Mahal in the department? We were functioning very well with one person. That became three people, which obviously you don't have now. You've got temporaries. And you're using the interim chief of police to send out your agenda on a day of high alert and not having power. So I hope that if you decide to make a wise decision tonight, that you also decide to separate, your work as a district away from the police. Thank you.
Just a couple more things that I want to say before is, I do have some concern about this differentiation between the sheriff supervising and what that actually might mean here in Kensington. So for instance, at this point, because the chief is under the general manager and is under your board, you set policies for how you want to see our police department operate and behave. Obviously, there's state requirements as well. But, for instance, the sheriff in Contra Costa County has certain positions on issues, particularly around how we treat immigrants, illegal immigrants in this country. And I'm concerned about not having control over the policies that we want to see implemented here. And so I'd like to hear a little bit about how you deal with that maybe in Danville and how that may play out here.
I'd like the candidate to answer that question.
Sure. And that's an important question. And so in the 26 years that I worked for the Sheriff's Office, I have also, during that time, I worked for the contract city of San Ramon, one of the contract cities. I worked for the contract city of Marinda and the contract city of Danville. So a lot of my career has been in a contract environment. And in those contract environments, we are specifically told that we cater to the needs and expectations of that community, period. I remember, and it was not Sheriff Livingston when I went into Danville, but it was Sheriff Root, who is no longer with us. And I asked him, once I had picked for Danville, sir, do you have any expectations from me and what I do in Danville? And he said, yes, make sure that you keep the town of Danville happy and don't change my mission statement. That was it. That was his exact direction to me. And we are told very much that we cater to the needs of the community, period. And those contract cities, something you might want to consider is the local identity is very important, and the Sheriff's Office respects that. Each of those contract cities, we wear a Danville uniform, a San Ramon uniform, a Orinda uniform, with Orinda patches, Orinda badges. It's not something to where you see the Sheriff's Office. It's done to cater to the needs of that specific community, because we all know that every community is different. I rest assured I can figure out that Kensington is different than Albany, is different than Berkeley, and different than El Cerrito. You have your own expectations, your own needs, and we know to cater to that at the direction of the board and the city manager or general manager in this particular case, and that's something that we do well. So just wanted to throw that out there, because it is a valid concern.
Can you talk a little bit about the issue of the treatment of undocumented immigrants, because that's a concern that we've had here in Kensington with this particular sheriff. And I actually went on the website recently to look that up some more, and what I read was not as draconian as I maybe had thought things might be, but I would like you to talk about that. I don't know whether you'll be on patrol at all, and maybe you could just be really clear what that means. I do know that when there are clashes of policy, county policy prevails, and I'm assuming is that for you alone and not for the department?
Yeah, I would be still under the direction of the Sheriff's Office.
Right. But can you talk specifically about this issue? There are concerns.
Sure.
So.
And again, we would be tailoring police services to what the expectations of the community are represented by you on the board. And one of the important things that I want to share is the Sheriff's Office no longer has any connection to ICE whatsoever. There's nobody who's detained. That ended, I believe it was in November last year. So that's over. There's no connection whatsoever there. But also, I'd like to give just an analogy to show what we expect in the car stop, because we have a specific policy in place. I like to use the car stop because that's a very common time when police officers encounter residents. So let's hypothetically say that a car stop was made for speeding, and the person there was an undocumented immigrant of some kind or another, and even said, "Officer, I am not a legal resident of this country." The officer can't do anything about that. There's nothing they can do. They can give them a ticket for speeding and wish them well on their way and suggest that perhaps they might want to change that someday. If there's nothing else there is no way that we can enforce federal law. We're only sworn to enforce California law. And it's been, a lot of things have been stated in the news and other stuff, but the bottom line is, even if somebody told me that and said, flag me down the street, sir, officer, I just want to tell you that I'm here legally, I think that's federal law, and I have no way to enforce it. So just to be sure on that.
So
Does that help answer?
Yeah, in what way would you have any connection on immigration? In what circumstance might that play into effect?
I guess I can't even come up with a scenario really because we have nothing to do. If the federal government comes to us and says, we have a warrant to search a home in Kensington, could you stand by while we serve that warrant? We then would have a duty to make sure that the things went safely. But that's, every step involved in that process is legal and lawful. We still can't, like, for example, if they said, could you serve the warrant for us? No, we're not going to do that. That's federal law. If you want to serve it, you can go ahead and do what you need to do. And we'll make sure that, the street is clear of traffic or something else like that. But we don't enforce federal law, in a sense. We just don't do it.
All right, so there's a motion on the table. Do you have any more comments?
Are there any more public comments?
All right.
I would like everyone from the public to comment, what's comment on this.
Just listening to all this. This is a super hefty price tag for the position. And I don't want thinking to go that that's something that we have to just absolutely accept going forward forever. Because I think there are differences. Kensington is a 10-person department. Other cities have 200, 300, 400, 500-person departments. There is a difference. Granted, you need to get close enough to be attractive to get the right person. I tend to support certainly the qualifications of the candidate here because I think you have a real issue you need to address with leadership and direction of the department. I think you should view it as, let's not stop thinking about where we're going to go next. And even in terms of looking for your next chief, because you need to be on that path, I think, even at this point in time. But, and not necessarily with just relaxing and saying, well, we're going to live with this for the next 3 years.
General Manager Concentraris already has a backup candidate. But that's going to take some time, but there is that.
I do think that you absolutely need to make sure that this works monetarily within the budgets that you have and the near-term needs of the department. And it's, it's an interim measure. Make the most of it if you go this path.
Yes, it's expensive, but all policing is expensive, and I hope that, and we need to have good leadership now, and I think you should go ahead and approve this, 6-month contract. Thank you.
6 months might be more fiscally sound.
But there, anyways, we have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
I might propose that we table the motion and have a finance meeting and then bring it back next month, or even do the special meeting. That's a possibility that would make me most comfortable, but I understand that other board members don't feel that way. But I understand absolutely that we can't wait beyond another month to secure this particular candidate.
Well, this is not necessarily a great idea, but keep in mind, as a contract, this contract can be terminated at any time.
I would rather go forward for my personal, with information first, but that each board member may know different anyway.
And my viewpoint is a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. We have an outstanding candidate. There is a potential candidate, but we've seen what's happened in the past where these good-looking candidates sometimes don't materialize when everything is all done. My concern about waiting is we know that frame, and I'd rather start that short time frame now and start improving our department rather than postponing a month and possibly losing this opportunity and then starting from scratch again. General Manager Constantouris was very humble when he talked about the efforts that he's gone to. It has taken a considerable amount of his time. He's also a part-time employee of the district, and it has taken a lot of his time to interview several candidates, to talk on the phone with them, and to move this process forward. And so I would not want to lose this opportunity. Director Debbie, do you have any comments? Sure. No, it's just our tax dollars are limited. Understandable.
He appreciated the capital comment.
And it's not personal. His fiscal concerns are not obviously personal. So. All right. Any other comments? Yeah, I will take the vote. Director Debbie? No. Okay. Director Madavi?
Well, this is difficult. On the one hand, I completely believe that this would be good to help solve issues with the department or some of the current challenges we're facing. On the other hand, the cost issue is really bothering me a lot.
So is that a yes or a no?
I'm processing this. Am I allowed time to process? Well, I'm going to go with no. I'm sorry.
Okay. Director Sheriff Watt?
No.
Okay. Vice President Desai?
I agree this is a very difficult choice because of the finances. I actually came tonight prepared to vote no, and I decided to vote yes.
Okay, and I vote yes, so it's defeated. It's 3 noes, and so the motion fails.
May I make a motion?
Yes.
May I move that we have a finance committee meeting at which we revisit this item and that we request the general manager bring it back November 14th to the board with the information should Captain Sitkins still be interested in the position at that time, because it truly is a financial concern on my behalf that I really, given the public safety building and given the community center ongoing, I really want to assure the community absolutely that this is within our ability.
Would you be available in a month, or is that?
That would have to be a conversation between us. It's a pleasure for me.
Okay. Okay.
I think that there are things unknown, but as time goes on, his availability.
Yeah, that's what I'm concerned about.
And I will tell you, we can afford it. I don't know.
Right.
The funds are there. It's not affordable.
I understand.
But you wanted more analysis. I don't know what.
Can the director reconsider their vote?
This requires getting a little deep in parliamentary rules, but if you'll bear with me, I'm a little rusty, but as I recall, the way that it goes is that someone who previously voted no would have to present a motion to reopen the issue, consider it again. And the board would then consider that motion. And if the majority of the board voted to reopen the matter, then the board could vote again on the motion.
Okay, so before we do that, it's 20 to 10. I'm going to make a motion that we extend the meeting to 10:30. there a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call. Wait, I have to write this down, because the sound system is down. Okay. Director Deputy, on the motion to extend.
Yes.
Director Madabi.
Yes.
Director Sherrill-Swat.
Yes.
Director Hasai.
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes, so the motion to extend passes 5-0. Do you want to make your motion?
I make a motion to reopen.
Okay, I'll second. Okay, Director Debbie? On the motion to reopen? Okay.
Sure, yes.
Director Madabi?
Yes.
Director Sherrill-Swat?
Yes.
And Vice President Hasai?
Yes.
Okay, and I will vote yes, so this motion passes 5-0. So shall I read my initial motion?
May I modify it slightly?
Sure.
I motion that we put for 3 months, because I think that will satisfy all the cost concerns. 3 months maximum, as the rest of your motion as is.
General Manager Council Tourist has said that we have the money in the budget. I would just assume let the time play out as long as we can have Captain Simpkins, because I would just assume get the benefit of his expertise and the time to implement it, so I don't want to cut it short.
And the contract can be terminated at any time.
That's right.
Okay, well then, I would like a reevaluation of finances in 3 months into this.
Sure, yeah.
And
that's
then
right.
I will
And we are planning to do that. We do have, hopefully, the finance and business manager starting soon, and my thought was to delay another finance committee meeting until after she's in place, and so we'll do that. So I'm going to read my initial motion, which is that I recommend that we approve the draft contract as presented, or with modifications. But the interim COP will be subject to the supervision of the sheriff, and authorize the general manager to negotiate and execute the contract subject to approval as to form by the general counsel.
with the expectation that the board will in 3 months consider financial analysis of where we are in this.
With the expectation that the board will
Convene or like do, take financial analysis of the
conduct
current situation.
financial.
And I think that satisfies all my concerns. I think it's the cutting in half way.
All right. So with that modification of the motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Director Debbie?
No.
Okay. Director Madabi?
Yes.
Director Sherrill-Swat?
No.
Director Hasai?
Yes.
And I will vote yes, so it passes 3-2. Welcome aboard.
And I absolutely want to speak, sorry, Director Gabby, I'm going to speak for you and myself, that we absolutely are delighted to work with you, and our financial concerns are no bearing on our excited enthusiasm for
All right, there's a last community second.
Sure.
5-minute bathroom break, folks. We can come up.
communications next weekend. I really think it would be good to have a change order policy. And what this is this includes a form where, so we can log them and determine what how much is left in the reserve and how much the change order is, and who approved it, and there's a record of it, who initiated it. And I'm recommending that this through a resolution. So since it's a policy board, it should be passed by resolution. The key parts of this are that for under $5,000, there will be the project manager who has the approval authority. The current project manager is the architect. For change orders of $5,000 to $15,000, that would require the approval of both the general manager and the project manager. For $15,000 to $25,000, we've added the approval of the president of the board of directors or their designee.
Or the vice president.
Or the vice president. Correct, thank you. And then I put in a provision for emergencies. If there's something that happens that it has a major effect on the project, and I've tried to define what the criteria would be that would fall under, that would be, that might exceed the $25,000. And we did have a change order that occurred that precipitated this policy, and the change order was approved and is done. Was for $11,544. So if we had a change order policy, it would fall under the middle bullet. You have to require the approval of the project manager, the general manager on this policy if the board approves it. This was unforeseen issues at the beginning of the project relating to soils testing that it had some toxic content, and we couldn't haul it to the local landfill. It needed special handling. And then the paving area was much thicker than expected. It was a foot thick. So that's what led to this 11. It had to be done if the project was going to be completed. There was no option. I also checked on our contingency. The current contingency is $176,700. We did apply a $36,000 change. It wasn't a change order when the contract was approved.
36 or 35?
36,000.
36.
And then this change order, this number 3, this 11,500 now. And also there was some power conduit revisions. That was a minor one, $1,600. So we still have $126,000 in the contingency. So I think there are sufficient funds to handle any future change orders, unless there's something that's really major that we did not expect. That would have to come back to the board for approval.
So you have about 127,600 left.
Exactly 126,810.
126,810.
So this 11,544 does not come out through the hazardous waste disposal?
It can be applied to the hazardous waste disposal.
Okay, so
Right, but it would be, yes, it could be.
So administratively, it's taken out of the solid waste franchise fee, but it does impact the project.
It's part of the project cost.
Yeah, so it's still worth doing, but it's.
no, but it leaves us 140.
That's right. This really doesn't have to be taken out of contingency.
Well, that's true.
Okay, so
That's
this.
true. You're correct. It doesn't have to be taken out of contingency.
What will happen with any excess contingency that goes back into our general fund?
Correct.
Okay, good. All right.
Presumably any costs over 25,000 then are accrued, come to the board of directors?
What's happening is that a director,
Yeah.
after the plan.
I'm asking Joe Ed. Yes.
Could you repeat that again?
Oh, sorry. Presumably any change order over 25,000 would need to come before the board of directors?
Yes.
Okay.
Should we specify that, or is that?
You can if you want.
I think we should.
Yeah, so that would be. exact. Change orders for amount equal to or less 5,000. Change orders for amount equal, oh yeah, sorry, 5,001.
So it's
Correct, yes, yes.
$25,001.
25,001 and over come to the board.
And then can we request that change orders, I don't want to do it every month, but, well, they'll all be part of the final project. Yes, yeah, I'll report at some point, whether that, how do you feel?
It would be good to, anytime there's a change in the contingency to report it. So, we went from 176.36 at the time of the contract, and now another 1,600. The 11,544 should technically come out of the solid waste franchise fees, as we've discussed multiple times. So, it would be good to have a running amount, and then anytime there's a change to that, even if it's small, it's just good to report.
Why don't we do that and have it as an agenda item on
It can be part of the community center report.
Yeah, you can just direct staff, and that's the best practice.
Yeah.
It would be good to have those.
So your next report should include the contingency fee, which I think at that point is just 176,700 minus 36,000 minus 1,600. Someone else can do the math.
For everything over 5,000, it would probably be better if at least when it's signed, it comes as like email call to the board of directors, just so we're all aware of that going on.
Was that service everything over 5,000?
Yeah, over 5,000 shows. Well, preferably, I guess all of any change order should be coming directly to all the board members, so we know it's at least happening.
Well, okay, so let's make that, well then, let's do that every month in the agenda. You don't want to, I don't think.
Well, again, I mean, like the point is that in every agenda or like
Yeah,
everything, at all the change orders that have been made.
Over 5, yeah.
For all of them, period.
Okay, all of them.
Is what I think we were talking about, that would be in the general manager's monthly report.
Okay, great, that's good.
Director Debbie, any comments? Okay. Right. Right. Yeah, I agree. Right.
Tony, did I understand correctly that you said that there would also be a report about the remaining balance in the reserve account, not just the contingency fund, but in the reserves?
I meant contingency. So those terms sometimes we use interchangeably, but I meant contingency.
Oh, because I was hoping for an update on the amount in our life account tonight. Is that possible?
Not tonight.
Is that something that could be agendized, President Natoli?
It could be part of my report.
Yeah.
A monthly update on where cash is?
Actually, this is my way that I've often lost statement for October, for last month is not yet up on the website, that needs to go on the website too.
Thank you.
Well, we're government agencies, so we don't have profit and loss, but we could,
Expenses and revenue.
Yeah,
expenses and
whatever it's called.
Yeah. I think it has been called profit and loss, but it should be expenses and revenue.
Okay, can I make a motion? Is there any other motion? Can I make a motion that resolution?
Only if you speak slowly.
Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this right here.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that the resolution number 2019-11, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Kensington Police Protection and Community Services District authorizing the approval of change orders and adopting a change order policy be adopted this evening with the addition of the words that change orders for amount equal to $25,001 and up must come before the Board of Directors to be approved. And that the general manager include in a monthly report the sum of the contingency funds.
A running tally.
Oh, yes, a running tally of the contingency funds.
I would like to second that motion.
Director Duffy?
Yes.
Director Madavi?
Present.
Vice President Tsai?
Yes.
Director Sherrill Swett?
Yes.
Okay, I'll vote yes, and so it passes, four votes in favor and one present. All right, that's it. I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
You have to vote on that?
Say it again?
You have to vote on adjournment?
I'll second the motion to adjourn.
My understanding is we don't need a motion to adjourn. So, all right, let's
Okay.
do that.